Welcome back to another week of ADSN. We are in not sunny Los Angeles today. It is actually raining, kind of sucks, but we have an incredible rundown. Daniel, I'm very happy that we are here to do this together, bud. To start us off, OpenAI, I think, is cool again.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for OpenAI. I think the headline, right, is that the OpenClaw creator, Peter Steinberger, officially joined OpenAI over the weekend. Sam Altman talked about it. There have been a number of analyses about this, but in his announcement, let's read it. I mean, Sam tweeted, Peter Steinberger is joining OpenAI to drive the next generation of personal agents. He's a genius with a lot of amazing ideas about the future of very smart agents interacting with each other to do very useful things for people. We expect this to quickly become core to our product offering. And then he goes on to talk about how OpenClaw will live as a foundation, as an open source project that OpenAI will continue to support. So I think the two stories here is Peter's joining, and it kind of telegraphs what OpenAI's priorities are, and that OpenAI is keeping this an open foundation, open source project.
Yeah, this is kind of Altman's Instagram. Like, and I've posted about it before. I think an OpenAI is sort of the Facebook, like the blue app of the beginning of the AI stage. This is basically him saying, with OpenClaw, what OpenClaw functionally does is allow agents to go ahead and do things for you. So you can set up an agent. Everyone's using Mac Minis, all this other stuff. OpenAI is clearly going to have it hosted, but you'll have agents doing things for you behind the scenes. And so OpenAI is going to become basically the operating system for all these different OpenClaws to go work on your behalf. And it has huge implications. I think, first of all, I felt like for the last month or so, Anthropic was the cool kid for sure. And everyone was sort of reading, the last rites for OpenAI. That is not the case anymore. Like, the developer community and even consumers, I think, kind of like hearts and minds are kind of with OpenClaw. So I think this is gigantic. I think also, we saw this immediately after this was announced. Meta announced that Manus, which they acquired a while ago, is now up and running. And so, what that means is that inside Instagram or inside WhatsApp or inside Ad Manager, you're now going to have basically the equivalent of agents working on your behalf. So we have moved from ChatGPT talking to it to now having agents going and actually doing shit for you, which is a huge deal.
And I love this too, because we've been in this kind of atmosphere where with the MCPs and Anthropic kind of did a lot of this. And then Manus was kind of the cool kid from like doing things on your behalf. And then OpenClaw took it to a whole nother level. Now we're talking about systems and companies that may compete, but interact with each other and interact with other software, other MCPs, like whatever it may be. It can do something for James or for Daniel. And I think that's a huge step forward where now we're like moving outside of that kind of walled garden mentality. And even though like OpenAI is going to house this and they're going to accrue a lot of that value, it can still interact with Anthropic or Manus or others that may be more specialized in certain areas.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot. It's not surprising given how many Facebookers are at OpenAI, but this is kind of the next iteration of what was called the Open Graph API back in the day with Meta, as well with Facebook. So you were actually using other applications and then it would share it with your feed or your friends. In this case, an agent is going to be using other applications for you basically on your computer, and it's going to be sharing it back to the AI. In almost every case now, it's going to be the default one is going to be an OpenAI AI. And so it's going to be incredibly powerful from an ads perspective. They're now going to know not just what you do at the high level, right, of what am I doing inside ChatGPT, but now OpenAI is going to actually know what you're doing at the layer below it, right? So within all the other applications. So they just sort of started, they now kind of have God mode onto what's going on your desktop, which is a good transition to what is going on with payments. Daniel, you want to tell us about my favorite topic? And we have a guest talking about this today, but what's the latest with crypto and stablecoins? And I'll tie this back together in a second.
Yeah. I mean, I think our friends at TBPM had an interview, and Dan Romero of Tempo kind of talked very clearly. And I mean, to your credit, James, you've talked about this, but why the future of AI, and in particular AI agents acting on behalf of folks, is going to be and has to be stablecoin native. It has to be related to crypto because the current payments infrastructure just doesn't contemplate, the future that we're heading into.
Yeah. So if you're going to have basically a ton of agents doing things on your behalf, they're not going to all have different credit cards. Instead, they're going to have wallets that have stable coins loaded on them. And that will end up being really kind of how these transactions happen on your behalf. Again, from like an ads and marketing perspective, it's pretty interesting in that a agent may go ahead and bring some sort of offer to your agent. Then your agent may go ahead and actually use your stablecoin wallet to go ahead and make that transaction for you. So it's going to get extremely weird, but there is no scenario in a world where two agents are talking together about a transaction on your behalf that they're then going to go and get this random credit card number and it's going to be tied to the Visa network here in like the real world. Like it is just, there's no way that's the end state for all this is. So I think crypto just found, I think stable coins, I think kind of were the beginning of, okay, like now there's real utility behind crypto. I believe Bitcoin, that's everything. But, and then now I think AI to AI transactions bring together not just the utility of stablecoins, but also why wallets are so important and why spinning up a ton of different wallets is such an elegant way of doing this, as opposed to spinning up a bunch of different credit cards.
I'm curious to see how this actually plays out because I don't think the traditional payment networks and the credit card issuers are going to give up that easily. And we've seen even with like Apple Wallet, they just spin up a ton of virtual cards, which you could argue is very similar to spinning up a stablecoin wallet and just having a record of this. And so I'm curious, like which is going to win and who's going to adopt what.
I think these native crypto solutions are going to win. And I think, Sam Altman has a crypto startup. Yeah. Like if you just look at the stack right now that both X and OpenAI are building, that even X at X money, it's going to be vertically integrated and it's going to be, now it may work more elegantly inside your own little ecosystem.
For sure.
But I'm going to be long tech, crypto, short financial services actually doing this, but who knows?
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, the incumbents versus the startups, but multi-billion-dollar startups. But yes. I think let's see. I want to see a Sam Altman, Elon Musk move where he just starts pulling in all his other companies into one giant.
Yeah, I think that's probably inevitable.
Yeah.
Another battle that I think is kind of gearing up for the legacy guys versus the new one is this seed dance controversy. And let me just bring up this tweet because it's totally ridiculous. But Cyan Bannister, who one of the kind of more I think respected VCs sort of out there, and I think kind of like a symbol of where things are going. But this tweet that says, "Today is the day that copyright dies. Welcome to the age of the remix and the inability to control IP from this day forward. There's no legal apparatus that can fend off the tide that is coming." And it's in reference to Seed Dance 2.0, which, there were all of these Larry David videos going out. There were all these Natalie Portman ones going out from Star Wars. I mean, it is
indiscernible.
Yeah. Just the Larry David one was ridiculous, but it's a problem, and it's not going away. Like, again, these models are the worst they're ever going to be. I don't know. What was your thoughts on what happens next with this one?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I mean, Disney immediately, filed like an infringement case against Seed Dance to like cease and desist. I wouldn't be shocked if Netflix takes the opposite approach. And like, I think there's going to be some modern media companies that say like, we want to work with you, but under kind of our guardrails. And we've got a ton of IP and you can use it.
I think Seed Dance came back. ByteDance came back and said, we didn't train it on your IP.
Yes, they did.
Right?
And I think Disney's making the case, well, you're still like using our IP in a way that is not aligned with like Disney. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be this like two-sided battle. One for training, which
Yeah.
becoming very clear, like the training is becoming easier and the output's getting better. And so like the Disney argument's probably getting worse. But then there's the output side of like, I still own the Curb Your Enthusiasm and you're using my characters, my, the sets, everything that I've created, my IP that I own. Even if you didn't train it, you're, using
it. Just because you ended up there without stealing from me doesn't mean you're not stealing from me now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be lawless. I'm curious. The place that will show up first, it's gonna be like, I'm curious to see what shady ads are running through it's gonna be, I guess, probably like sort of TikTok influencer, like, AI TikTok influencers. I bet you there's some stuff that gets through on X.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's gonna be some Reddit stuff. I'm curious to see what happens in the mobile gaming space.
Mobile gaming is going to be out of control.
I think that one's going to be a little lawless for a little bit. But I do think, kind of just putting on the sort of ads MarTech hat, really, really great creative. Yeah. This is like a solved problem. Like it's, it's going to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
But if anyone is worried they can't go ahead and create world-class creative anymore, they need to go just get on X for 5 minutes and see how ridiculous this stuff is. And, the fact that it's open source is also just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I don't know, but
I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be like chaos for a bit and then it'll get cleaned up, some rules in place, but new media is going to have to embrace this. Advertisers are going to have to embrace this. Like if you fight it, you're just like swimming against the tide.
Yes. Another thing that I think people are going to do if they fight it is being shameless. And I think that's a good segue to our own first marketing campaign for ADSN. We got to get a video of it pulled up right now. Hopefully Chris can pull that up. But can you tell everyone
the ADS team has been hard at work of, what can we do from a marketing standpoint that, we can put, as everyone knows, put in the Olympics. That was a big move for us. Let's get into a tentpole event. Let's prove that, advertisers our size can go buy this. Shout out Universal Ads, our day job here. And do a creative that I think speaks to the fun of this podcast. I think where we are just in the cycle of social media and entertainment, and let's get it out there. And no AI was used. I think
no AI was used, and hopefully we can also show a video of where this was a blatant inspiration from a local Manhattan Beach golf course ad that I saw. But I will say our traffic has increased a ton. TV ads definitely work. Obviously, we think that from just our day job.
Yeah.
But it literally ran during the Olympics. Our search volume, YouTube views has gone up. It's really amazing. Anyone can be a TV advertiser now. Forget about our own bias on this stuff. It's just very cool. And actually, it's funny. I was this weekend. I was in Mammoth with my family. We were sitting, in the ski lodge watching the Olympics. And I was glued to the TV. And my wife was like, "Why are you so focused on this?" I just want to see if our ad shows up at this bar. This is incredible.
I'll say there's a lot of people too. When when we announced on LinkedIn that this was going to be in the Olympics, had a lot of people reach out, how'd you guys do that? That's incredible. Yeah. What event should I be watching? And I know. Think, we live in ad land, and so it's easy for us to understand, but I think the masses still think TV is inaccessible, which I think is a funny thing.
Yeah. And another funny thing too is not only are you now having, and our ad was not AI, but there are a ton of AI ads that are running during things like the Olympics, but you also now have contestants in the Olympics performing to AI music. So you sent me this one in this TechCrunch article, which is there was an ice dance duo that skated to AI music at the Olympics, which is just if you would have said this to me, I think you would have said this to me a year ago. I'd be what the hell are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And even this podcast, which actually not show. This is a show, not a podcast. I'm sorry. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard because we have to get on Netflix at some point. But even this show, I mean, it's the purpose of this actually is around ads and marketing, but AI has just eaten the entire stack. So now, it's whether I'm my workflow around ads, it's going to be driven by AI. My creative around ads, driven by AI. How my ads are delivered, AI fact. And then now content that I consume is either going to be real life, but there's going to always be, there's like, to see something that is not touched by AI anymore is going to be like a rare feat of like going out into the forest by yourself. Like everything else will have some tinge of AI, the same way how like everything you do today has some electricity. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's anyone who continues to fight it. I think again is just like head in the clouds, like they're not looking.
Yeah.
But I think we've talked a lot now about AI. I think this one was just funny to me because the past couple episodes we've talked about YouTube and Netflix and this like constant tension that's going on with each one. And I just thought it was hysterical that YouTube basically called out Netflix like publicly, just like a big brother move. They were kind of like, Netflix is a great channel. We appreciate them as a channel. They do a lot of advertising on YouTube. They find a lot of success. We hope they're part of the YouTube ecosystem one day, but they're a great channel, and we like basically wish them a lot of success.
Yeah, it's Christian Osling, who I haven't met him, but he worked with Clark Landry and kind of the old crew. He was part of like the Fred Krueger, Evan Rifkin, all those guys. So he's got like LA ties to kind of LA ad tech. But yeah, he said, I'm excited that Netflix increasingly sees the value of YouTube. Maybe one day Netflix will be part of YouTube. They have a great channel. And just like, now, to be fair to him, like YouTube is such an OS and does carry so much. And you look at like what's happening with Amazon and Amazon channels, even at our employer, like for Comcast, like Bravo on Peacock, right? Yeah. So like, obviously that's O&O, but like the idea there's going to be channels on these platforms does make sense. But I agree with you. It was just a pretty kind of gangster move. And it also just made me think about how important it is for each of these businesses to just have their own independent ads businesses. Mm-hmm. Like Netflix cannot be reliant on Google demand, right? Like they gotta go, they gotta go wall this thing up over time. I know they can't do it immediately, but like Netflix ad manager needs to be the source of 95% of that revenue.
Yeah.
But it's fun to see. And I think Google, maybe it's because of the administration, maybe because of the lawsuits, but it's like, I feel like Google's now kind of like, they're like,
they're getting a little swagger. They're like getting their Mark Zuckerberg swagger moment. I think the comment with like OpenAI a few weeks back of like, it's cute that they're trying ads right now.
Yeah. We don't need I was gonna make a meme, but I had to like do work and deal with my kids. But I thought this one was almost like Trump saying he wanted Greenland. Just like YouTube, like wants Netflix. It's like, but yeah, they definitely like the gloves are off, and I think it's just got to be a function of just there's so much competition right now. And again, you would have said a few years ago that there's going to be this fight for how much, like where you search and where you spend your time across all these things and all these different. There wasn't too long ago that it really was a duopoly in advertising. Yeah, right. At Google Meta, like we're way past that. Yeah. So things are moving very, very quick.
Yeah. And I think one area that maybe Google obviously has had such a such a stronghold on is obviously search, but like localized search. Like obviously there's Yelp and kind of more niche ones, but Google has continued to kind of optimize their search algorithms around like local recommendations, especially integrating in Gemini, starting to give much more personalized, localized responses around that. And I thought it was interesting. I think I said this one to you, but TikTok actually announced that they're going to try a local feed, which I think is kind of brilliant. I mean, you're talking about a generation on TikTok that probably doesn't search a ton on Google, at least today. And so if TikTok can try to get and become that like local search engine for this generation in a way that is how they want to consume content with videos and photos and like, peers showing them what a place is like, I think TikTok's got a shot. I mean, I think it's a long shot, but it's a shot.
It's a classic example of my favorite $4 stock, Snapchat being ahead of the game to some extent, because maps, right, and discovery around maps was kind of that, right? Like, how can you have a local feed and explore the world around you? And I think, Evan was right again. I do think, and we've talked about this too many times on this show, but that the these AI assistants are going to become the new social networks. These are just feeds, right? Feeds of content that are made for you. They'll be derived from the feed and the content that you own. And so, if you were to stack rank, who has the strongest hand right now, you have to say it's Gemini because they have YouTube, search, maps.
Yeah.
You also have to give Meta, once they kind of get going, a huge hand to play there too. All of the Instagram content, all the Facebook content, all the WhatsApp content, all the connections to business. Now Manus, that assistant's going to be incredible. I would argue Amazon's is pretty niche, right? And then ChatGPT on the consumer side, they still don't have like the content to get your dwell time. I do think they should buy Snap, whatever. Not going to but I think that's all this localization push kind of I think reinforces that. And you sent me this one about how the NFL is even talking about having their content be more distributed and more fragmented, right, to get in front of these communities. And I think it does, again, it's sort of another coming of the walled gardens, but I do think it is super interesting.
Yeah, and I think like everything you just talked about with AI, it's all personalization, right? And everything is becoming more and more personal. And I think there's been a lot of talk recently about Instagram's algorithm, YouTube's like certainly Shorts algorithm, that the concept of like a feed or like a selected feed where like I have friends in this friend graph that's going to serve me content is almost becoming obsolete. Like these algorithms are so good that if you want to see friend content, it'll serve you friends content. If you want to see other content, it'll start to learn those behaviors, which is obviously TikTok's model that like friends don't really matter there. And I think it's the same with traditional media, right? The NFL, I think, is a leader here, but coming out and saying, we're looking at partnerships with non-traditional partners, with people that maybe historically were too small to be an NFL partner or help broadcast NFL games. And I know I've talked your ear off about this, but I think that's like the future of media, certainly live sports, live events. Is like, why is there one broadcast or two broadcasts that we all watch? Really, like you probably want to watch a golf tournament with, I don't know, like Bryson DeChambeau, like telling you about it, or, Tiger Woods talking about it and commentating, right? Somebody else probably wants to watch like Bob Costas. And I probably want to watch somebody who's got a little more humor because I don't actually care that much. Like we all care about something a little different. And so I think AI is pushing this, and it's going to bleed into media and NFL and everything else.
Yeah, it's, as you're saying that, one thing I was thinking about, like what I really want to watch is I want to watch Tiger Woods. I want to watch Tiger Woods commentate on an AI Tiger Woods, like a realistic, like statistically realistic Tiger Woods playing against real people.
Sure.
So it's like, how do I get Big Cat like back in my life? I would watch an AI Tiger play and have Tiger talk about how good he used to be.
Go see dance it.
Oh my God. It'd be so good. Yes. But, so that would be awesome. I don't think I'll probably will see that anytime soon. But one thing that I doubted I would see that I now have seen is this post from Andreessen Horowitz's own Brian Kim, friend of ours from Snap, in which Andreessen Horowitz is now saying ad tech is cool. It really is like incredible that it's like we hung out at the cool kid table like long enough during recess or something, and then everyone came back and it's like, oh, they actually like were allowed to stay. But he wrote this great post on X and on LinkedIn, and it's of course they're putting ads in AI, and it's got this great like image of like people like celebrating. But he basically goes on to like the industrial logic, which I think everyone is pretty aligned on. But then I think what was really cool about it is he goes into like, and we've talked about this so much, but like not all ads not all ads businesses are the same, and it actually totally impacts your business. So he goes over kind of different options that you have. One is obviously around search and intent based. You could argue Google is obviously like the gold standard there. It goes into context based ads in the style of Instagram. Then you have the affiliate commerce guys. This obviously, probably the best example in my mind is actually shop campaigns and a lot of stuff they're doing there. Then you have games, and everyone kind of sleeps on this, but eventually it's all feeds in an effort to go ahead and increase dwell time become gaming platforms.
Yeah.
And iOS and Android are great examples of that. And then my personal favorite and just made me smile, especially as I sent it to David Liu, who's the head of machine learning at Discord, and a good friend of ours, but goal-based bidding. And this is basically how could you start to really build auction dynamics into AI and compute to get your own outcomes. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And we've talked about this. I dream about it. It's pathetic, but I thought the article was awesome. And I think the fact that Andreessen now is showing, for a fund that needs to chase just gigantic returns in terms of power law, right? They have to them hitting singles and doubles is worth nothing. This is a very, very good sign for ads, ad tech, martech. So I was very pumped and immediately texted Brian and said, thank you for doing that.
Well, let's get this to be an RFB, a request for Brian to come on the pod.
That is what. All right, I'm going to text him right now. Let's RFB. We're going to go back to RFP, but this can be a request for Brian Kim to come on to the show. And now that he has an ad tech VC, maybe he's actually listening to this thing. Brian, if you're listening, snap me.
Yeah, let's talk ads. But all right, before we get to our conversation with Ben Putley, let's do primary posts. Why don't you kick it off?
My primary post is, it again makes me very happy. It's by none other than Scottie Pippen. I think arguably one of the most underrated basketball players of our time, and he was obviously on the Bulls. If you are friends with me or follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about the Bulls quite a bit. But Pip said 6 months of focus can fix your last 5 years of F-ups. And I thought, just what weird timeline am I now that Scottie Pippen is giving life advice? But he's became a prolific Bitcoin investor, and I do think it is a point of view I share very deeply. Especially as I get older, is that just giving a shit and focusing is so powerful. So obviously, I'm a 41-year-old ads exec with 2 kids in Manhattan Beach. No one's really going to listen to me, but you should listen to Scottie Pippen and take his advice. So that is my primary post.
I love it. And I do love, you're right, this weird timeline. Scottie is building a sports brand in Web3. He's this prolific Bitcoin investor. Wow. Scottie has turned a corner. Yeah. All right. So then mine's a lot less fun than that, but I think it's fascinating. So by Jared Sleeper, it basically listed the headcounts for a number of companies that we all heard of and we all know in software, paired up against OpenAI and Anthropic. The takeaway is OpenAI's got 7,000 employees, Anthropic's got 4,000. And then you talk about companies like Workday with 23,000, Zoom with 13,000, Salesforce with 90,000. That's a lot of people. When we talk about the future, the companies that are shaping the future of the internet and the world have 4,000 people doing it, and then you've got Zoom, and Zoom doesn't work all that well that often.
Yeah, I think the one that I look at and makes me sort of chuckle, but is Workday. I actually kind of think though, for these companies, it's encouraging. Listen, Workday's sticky; it's not going anywhere. For sure. And a lot of the enterprise companies. The fact that it has as many people as my hometown of Lake Forest, Illinois, is insane, right? That is, what are they all doing? I have no idea. And so I would anticipate that the SaaS apocalypse in the public markets is going to give these CFOs a lot of air cover to go ahead and right size. And it's going to be brutal. I mean, and this is it's sort of what happened in traditional big tech a few years ago, right? Now it's getting into like your more traditional legacy SaaS providers. But that's a lot of people. And especially if those firms are being set up with Claude Cowork or OpenAI or Manus. I mean, like this is gonna change. And there was that tweet about Spotify, which we texted some friends over Spotify to like see if it's true, and they all said yes. That those engineers aren't even writing traditional code; they're just prompting. So like, it's got to change.
Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway. Like if you have 30,000 people with AI, either this company is the next space company, or it's got to right size at some point.
Yes. Shout out to Sprinkler though for making the list.
Oh yeah,
just giving
yeah,
that's kind of fun. Bro. He's not there anymore, but
congrats to those guys.
So I like it. Well, let's go find out from Ben what the hell is going to happen with crypto and ads and why I'm right about wallets and you're wrong about Visa.
Okay, let's do it. All right, we're welcoming Ben Putley, CEO and founder of Alkimi. His company is ushering in a new evolution of digital advertising, really tokenizing digital ads in the programmatic ad space. And Ben, we wanted to welcome you on today. There's a lot happening in the ad space with both crypto, but also kind of agentic buying and selling, a lot of talk. So we wanted to get someone who's in the space to actually break it down for us.
Yeah, for sure. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So you come to the right guy. So we planned it. I think it's certainly very interesting. At least all the talk is very interesting about agents buying from agents in the future. But I think there is a whole load of issues that you run into at scale, which you've probably experienced at an individual level when your context window compacts and it doesn't quite remember exactly what you were talking about or building or whatever you were doing. That at scale is going to be bad in terms of reconciliation, ad spend, content drift, respecting site list, formats, delivery, you name it. There's a lot of parameters that go into any kind of ad campaign. So being able to tie that to an immutable distributed ledger that all agents can access and reference exactly what's going on, what happened in the past and what the plan is in the future is a pretty compelling use case for a different kind of infrastructure, for a different kind of way to buy ads. And the benefit of being able to not just send data between buyers and sellers, but actually use those exact same rails to send value between people that buy ads and sell ads. So there is a whole host of potential, and it's quite nice that the market's come our way. Like I think blockchain had its day and then it was a swear word and now it's being used in other sectors to great effect. And I think it's about time that happens for ad tech.
And, in terms of, I guess, like where we are in the cycle, like how practical is any of this? Like, for example, there's been press around it. NBC Universal put out some really interesting press around like agents, buyer agents, seller agents working together. But where are we in the cycle in terms of this actually being something that people can do today? And how fast is it all accelerating based on what you're seeing?
I think I'm kind of closely monitoring the repos that I can. Like there's a lot of good work being done by the team at Prebid on their seller agent. The Tech Lab recently just kind of gave people access to the framework for buyer agents, seller agents, the way they speak to each other. Now kind of developing the framework is one thing, kind of connecting up the various incumbents and all of the problems that come with that is a completely different question. I think it is made easier because agents can build other agents quite effectively. So I think it smells a little bit like the year of the mobile, which was a decade long. We may well see the same thing, albeit slightly compressed because you can build stuff faster now, more efficiently. But I think that to some degree, it's like existential to a lot of the existing ad tech companies today. Like if an agent is buying or selling media, what role does a DSP or an SSP have to play there, given that that is now all encompassed in a single agent as opposed to a sprawling platform? So there's that question of like, will there be a push against it? Will it operate within the silos that it already operates? Does that really solve anything other than saying that you have an agent now? Does it actually deliver any efficiencies? Is another question that needs to be answered. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I wish I knew the exact answer because I would drive directly towards that. We have an idea, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like all these things, there'll be very many different iterations and different various. Well, who knows? Like it's exciting anyway.
Do people get that like the key to this is the payment rails, or is that still sort of non-obvious? Like what's like when you're having a conversation, like and you're in the UK, but you guys do a bunch of stuff globally. But if you're having a conversation with like some big holdco, like do they get that like ads businesses are effectively just payments businesses, and like as a result, this kind of like can solve that problem? Or is it still like, do you have to give the context window speech first and then you move into payments?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, some people lean into blockchain or agents, others don't. And we just tend to dial up each part of that conversation where you need to. I think we've always tried to meet the market exactly where it is and then like take them along to where we think it should be going. That has had many guises in the nearly 5 years we've been operating, but there's some really neat tricks that you can use just to demonstrate that. Like we've started sending proposals as markdown files. So you have a hyperlink to the proposal, and then you have a hyperlink to a markdown file, which you can just give to your agent. And then you can just quiz the proposal rather than actually look through exactly what's happening. So there's like ways in which you can like judge adoption, and then like double down on someone's like, oh shit, could we do this with that? You probably could, yeah. And just like let people be curious and then give them the solutions when that curiosity hits.
And how fast are you seeing these companies both adopt, but also just like start to lean into this stuff? Like kind of what James is asking, but like these agencies, when you send that markdown file, some I'm sure like, what is this? Send me the PDF. While others are like, great, I'm going to go give this to an agent. Like where are we in that adoption cycle?
I think most people have a ChatGPT account, whether that's like company sponsored or not, it's a different story. So like they might use the PDF, the proposal at work, and then they're like, oh, I'm actually just going to try this out and see what we're doing. Like my wife doesn't care for ad tech particularly, but I just showed her it and she was like, this is pretty cool. I've opened it up in ChatGPT. It's now telling me information that I'm not interested in, but is interesting. So I think there's like little stories that we then hear like, oh, that was a pretty cool way of doing it. And like we've just shortened our turnaround time for proposals across the board. It like takes us, I mean, the email hits, the proposal goes out the door more or less. So it's like people start to notice that like, how the hell do you do that so quickly? And then you can just start to explain them. So it's more like little kind of bits of the iceberg pop out here and there. And then you see people go, oh shit, this could probably save me a ton of time. And then some people are like, I'm terrified that I won't need to exist in the future, and they look at the
PDF. tell us those companies, and we can start an index to short those and go long with the others.
I love all our clients. I love all of our clients. They're all brilliant. I want to work more with them in the future.
I guess, given what you've seen and like just your experience, and you brought it up, like the SSPs versus the DSPs, from our perspective, we've always worked kind of on the walled garden side. Everything for us was always kind of just ads API based. Mm-hmm. And I think like the agents for that, like abstracting away cross ads API UIs via an agent and then tying the payments to it, like makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Like it's like actually what we always were trying to do in previous jobs and previous companies, but it was so hard to do it. Just because like it was so much manual workflow, and now the agents can just obviously do this.
Yeah.
Given that, and I think that's like not a controversial take, but it's like, where are you seeing kind of like the role of the open web in this? Like you're dealing with a lot more of open web inventory than like, we previously dealt with. How are you seeing them like understand that like they kind of, it's almost like, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but it's like Brian O'Kelly talked about it, where it's like all about orchestration and workflow now. And so it's like kind of everything's just an ads API and agents are going to do this. And like, so I guess what happens to the DSPs and the SSPs and the open web in that context?
I think you will always need a human being somewhere, because I don't think there's any precedent for taking an agent to court if they were to buy $1 million of ad inventory somewhere they weren't supposed to. Like, how do you actually litigate that scenario? So you're going to want someone to get fired for it. and say it was actually that person, even though I did it on their behalf. So I think like that until that has changed, regulations and the way we think about what an agent may or may not do and is responsible for, we'll need a human being. I think you can either think of it in terms of like giving humans the chance to do things that only humans can do, and then take away the work that isn't actually valuable, that is repeated time and time again, and see what the outcome of that is. I have this kind of thesis that like ad spend is seasonal, but really I think it's just like dictated around when people go on holiday or not. And so like over the summer, people go away, so plans don't get planned. So you see the kind of dip over the summer. People come back, like, shit, it's Christmas, we need to spend some money, and then they're away on holiday, so plans don't get planned in January. Like, if you're able to have someone that's always speaking to someone, like, does ad spend flatten out? Like, what does that do for the way that budgets are planned and how you package up inventory? Like, it presents a whole load of interesting questions if work is just more efficient. Like, do you need the same kind of numbers of people in teams? Can they do things that agents can't do? Does creative get more important? Is taste something that then becomes way more important than it has done in the past? Like, there's a whole bunch of questions, but I really think the story is efficiency, which is kind of what we've been driving from day one. And to go back to a question around like the open web side of things, it's like, well, if you're a buyer of an ad and our fees are low, then your ad dollars have more purchasing power. Like, what does that do for efficiency of money that's spent on media anyway? If you're able then to tie in, okay, I don't have to spend 4 hours putting together a PCA and whatever it may be for the buyer, what does that allow you to then go out and do? I don't know. And then if you're not reconciling payments for 2 weeks out of every 6, what can you then do with that time? And you can probably look at what is now kind of a 10-year-old DeFi market where you have a pool of liquidity that humans have interacted with to do things. And it's so far been pretty good at no double spending. Everyone knows where all of the tokens, dollars, stablecoins, whatever they are at any one time. But if that logic is then applied to a market like online advertising, like what new companies are then built off the back of that underlying infrastructure? Like, does it go more purely financial? Does it look more like the New York Stock Exchange? Now, that's not a new take, but like, does it? And what new yield products can exist off the back of that? Like, what new entrants to the market that would never put dollars into advertising now can? I think as soon as you tie that kind of automation plus payment, you're in a cool spot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I saw some post about just like how I think it was in reference to some of the malt book stuff, but it was just like basically credit cards in this context don't make any sense because prompt injection. So like it's going to end up being all these agents have wallets tied to, and it's like you hear that use case and it's so obvious it's going to work that way. Yeah. Like how would it even? I can't even fathom another way for it to work. No. But I am curious. Like, I guess. There's no way the average person you're talking to understands that yet, right? Like in the course of the ad industry?
No, I would say on the whole, no.
Okay. All right.
But it's our job. Like, you don't need to understand it. Like, who gives a shit? Like, does it work better than what you currently have? Yeah. And it's our job to abstract it away.
Yes, it's just if you could do that, it's so sticky, and it is just it's just like vertically integrated.
Yeah,
and then like the issue is like, how good are you? I guess at like maintaining the context and the formats and all that, which seems like pretty solvable.
Yeah, it's you can solve it with siloed databases today. Like that is true. You just deal with basically config drift as the campaign proceeds, and there is a pricing engine that exists in the pre-bid seller agent that can just get a bit noisy. So like you might have plus or minus 3%, and then you're still stuck reconciling a lot of deals after the fact. And now our development team's been using this, but we just have like an enormous library of markdown files, which are effectively what agents read session to session, product to product, developer to developer, that just give it a much more controlled context of what took place. And that system that we had, I spent a lot of time, I went down this rabbit hole of this like agent development system called Gastown. It's this guy called Steve Yeggi that built it, where he's like kind of loosely based it on a bunch of sci-fi films. And even in building with that, it has a system to manage context, still ran into issues, which was kind of like a meta way of proving that a ledger is a really nice solve for even when a buying agent interacts with a selling agent for the first time, they could be trying to spoof each other. So I could be a fake website. I convince your agent I'm not. Thank you for playing. I just had a bunch of free cash. Or I'm a buyer that has no intention of ever paying you. I spoof you the first time. I'm going to get away with the campaign dates because until you reconcile it 60 days after the fact, you wouldn't know that I haven't got the money to pay for it, right? And those, whilst you can manage those decisions, like at scale, it just becomes unmanageable so quickly, and you might just end up with chaos, really. And that is kind of the fundamental value add of a distributed ledger, a blockchain, is that it brings order to chaos in a completely distributed network with mathematical proofs, immutable records of what took place at any point in the marketplace history. So it's like a really neat solution, and there's ways you can have a zero knowledge login, right? Like you put an email address in, and actually your agent's now got a wallet. You put 100 quid into a platform, you now have gas fees to read and write from a ledger without ever realizing that's what you were doing. You will just see the outcome of, okay, my campaign just performed as it should do, and I'm getting these great reports, and I can now see that this seller is not just verified by me, but other buyers have purchased from it, and that seller's good. So I don't have to meet a seller for the first time as an agent and you're like, are they good or bad? I'm not sure. It's just I can see their record. And then the opposite is true as well. It's like you can have a private marketplace of verifiable track history without seeing exactly what took place, because you can have configurable privacy with what you can access on chain and can't access on chain. So like if you and I, James, are doing a deal, Daniel, you'd never be able to see what actually took place in that deal, but you would know that we were both agents that were behaving ourselves. So you could then kind of confidently interact with us if you had something to buy or sell in the future.
And then does this make you, I guess, like there's been a lot of talk over the last 5-10 years of kind of the slow death of the open web. And so do you view this as like a resurgence of the open web, kind of removing those fees, removing a lot of the fraud that gets taken place, improving the transparency? Like, is this a resurgence, or is this kind of just a correction of status quo?
I think we've wanted to provide more value back to the people that create value, like advertisers that fund audiences and then publishers that generate the attention for those audiences themselves. I think this is a great way to do that. I also think like walled gardens were good for distribution when no one really knew how to code. But I think now if anyone can spin up a website and then connect it to a system that's going to monetize their inventory for them, you don't have to wait to get to a minimum threshold as a creator. You have no barrier to entry in terms of like creating a website with a video player, and then you can use Twitter to point directly back to your website to have people understand what you're talking about. And like you might actually see like it goes almost full circle where people are like, fuck it, I want to blog again, and I'm going to write about what I want to write about, and I will use platforms to be discovered, but drive them back here because I'm going to make $5 CPM instead of $2 CPM from YouTube or whatever it is. And I can now actually manage my ad sales because I just have an agent that's going to negotiate with buyers, and I prove I'm very, like, you could just kind of like the whole middle part just collapses and the value goes back to the people at the edges all of a sudden. Because in my mind, it's kind of like, here's all the fees. Like if you just charge them here and then just let the dollars be efficient, it's kind of exactly the way that other digital markets work, right? Like the internet is the last bastion of like a digital market that trades high frequency, that has obnoxious fees that sit in the middle. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see what plays out if you just collapse that. and just let the value transfer between parties that create it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've thought about this a lot where it's like, I think you can have like the walled gardens, like the rich can get richer while still the rest of the internet, because so much more consumption time is going to increase as agents are doing all these things for us. So like, we're kind of like just dealing with a new baseline of how much screen time we have. Like people aren't going to like just start like working out more.
Yeah.
And like, so like screen time is going to increase. The amount of surfaces that people can create is going to increase. That does mean the walled gardens win to some extent, but I do agree with you that like there's definitely there's going to be this sort of it's like people have tweeted about this, like the Cambrian explosion of like apps and like different like games and experiences. Like that's going to happen, and that will create way more distrust on both sides in terms of buyers and sellers. And so what you're describing is like, to me, the most logical solution anyone could come up in that world. So yeah, I'm sold.
It's also like you're seeing now, I think Australia have banned kids under 16 from social media. I think Spain has done the same thing. It's like you're seeing more countries do that, not fewer. So like if that scales, then all of a sudden like your conveyor belt of new eyeballs that come into the walled gardens has been like shut basically, and you'll have like a big gap of like probably like 10 years down the road where kids have just never been on it, don't understand what it is, don't use it, have done something else because they want to speak to their friends online. Like they'll have figured something else out by that point. And it's like, does the supply of new eyeballs come in? And then is it just like us as old people that are still using Instagram? And it's like, who the fuck wants to advertise to them? You know, like they want the new kids that have like, you know, like the new customers, right? Like,
it'll end up being new walled gardens.
Probably. Yeah, probably right. Or it'll be like something like an ad network, maybe, and then someone will build an exchange, and we'll go full circle again.
Yes, I do think I talked to someone about this yesterday, and then I know we got to wrap. But given how so many of the AI models right now are being used for ad monetization, so you can look at like Higgsfield or like I'm investing in Creatify, like things like that. It's so kind of like you look at it now and you're like, oh, one of these things that starts off as ad tech is going to turn into a network itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like if it's good enough to like end up being entertainment on these networks in the form of advertising, it probably can be good enough in terms of actually getting people to consume. So it's like, it's crazy how like vertically integrated it all could get. So yeah, man, crazy. Well, thank you, dude, for doing this. If anyone wants to reach out to you, talk to you about this stuff, how can they do that?
You can send me an email, just ben@alkimi.org, or follow me on Twitter. I'm quite active on there. It's always a good laugh, isn't it? So,
did your agent respond to that email or no?
No, it's always me.
Okay. All right, man. Appreciate you doing this.
No problem.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers.